From Washington, this is VOA News. I'm Ray Kouguell in Washington. There's a new effort to fight international terrorism. The European Union is launching new anti-terrorism projects with Muslim countries and increasing its intelligence sharing in the aftermath of deadly attacks in France and violent confrontations in Belgium. EU foreign ministers met Monday in Brussels with the Arab League Secretary General. EU Foreign Affairs Chief Federica Mogherini says the EU will be sharing information on suspected terrorists and possible attacks with many countries throughout the Arab world, Africa, and Asia.
The threat is not only the one we faced in Paris, but also spreading in many other parts of the world, starting from Muslim countries, and we need to strengthen our way of cooperating together.
Ukraine's prime minister says there's indisputable evidence Russia's government continues to send military personnel and equipment to support separatists in their fight against Kiev. Prime Minister Arseniy Yatsenyuk says the country's military intelligence service had confirmed manpower and equipment were sent into Ukraine from Russia. Earlier Monday, Ukrainian military spokesman Andrei Lysenko said some 700 Russian troops had crossed into Ukraine that day to back up the rebel forces. The Cameroon military says at least 24 hostages who were seized by militant group Boko Haram have been freed. The military spokesman says troops rescued the hostages as they chased the militants in far northern Cameroon. Reports indicate that at least some of the hostages escaped or were intentionally released. Boko Haram is still holding between 30 and 50 people kidnapped Sunday in a cross-border raid from Nigeria. The group also burned down about 80 homes and killed several people during the attack. This is VOA News. Police in the Democratic Republic of Congo used live rounds and tear gas Monday to break up protests in Kinshasa against a proposed law that could delay national elections. Opponents say the law requiring completion of a national census before elections would allow President Joseph Kabila to stay in office past the end of his term late next year. Sporadic fighting between Houthi rebel militiamen and soldiers protecting Yemen's president paralyzed parts of the capital Sana'a Monday. It all comes amid fears of a still worsening conflict. Edward Uranian has more.
Houthi rebel fighters surrounding Yemen's presidential palace traded fire intermittently with soldiers inside the compound Monday as fighting engulfed parts of the capital, Sana'a. Witnesses say the fighting began before dawn, with conflicting reports about what set it off. Tensions have been running high in Sana'a since the Houthis kidnapped President Abdurrabbu Mansour Hadi's cabinet secretary Saturday. Yemen's official government spokesperson insisted a ceasefire had been agreed upon, but the situation is still fluid. Edward Uranian, Cairo.
Iran says one of its generals was killed in an airstrike in Syria. It's attributed to Israel and their military. General Mohammed al-Haddadi, a former brigade commander in Iran's Revolutionary Guard, died in the attack Sunday, along with 6 members of the Lebanese Shiite group Hezbollah. Indonesian investigators say they have found no evidence of terrorism in last month's AirAsia plane crash. The head of a 10-member investigative team from the National Transportation Safety Committee says that no threats were found in the cockpit voice recordings of the plane that vanished from radar screens on December 28th. Both black boxes of the AirAsia flight were recovered in the Java Sea. All 162 people on board were killed in the crash. Pakistani officials say a suspected U.S. drone strike killed at least 4 militants in northwestern Pakistan. Monday's strike targeted a Taliban compound in North Waziristan along the Afghan border. Their account, however, could not be independently confirmed. President Obama and Americans across the country engaged in community service projects Monday on the national holiday marking the birthday of slain civil rights leader Martin Luther King, Jr. The President and First Lady Michelle Obama volunteered at a Boys and Girls Club in Washington. And the richest 1% of people in the world will have a majority of the wealth on the planet next year. According to development nonprofit Oxfam, the most affluent share of global wealth climbed to 48% last year, compared with 44% in 2009, and likely past 50% next year. I'm Ray Kouguell in Washington.
That's the latest world news from VOA.